Are you a hobbyist who's been thinking about getting an airbrush and an airbrush compressor? If you are, then today I'm going to be going back over one of my older videos and having a look at the AS-186. Join me after this. Hello there and welcome back. So a little over 10 months ago, I made my very first video on this channel, and that was reviewing the AS-186 airbrush compressor, which also comes with a couple of airbrushes as well. Now this video has actually become one of my most popular videos that I've ever released, and it kind of makes sense to go back over it because in the 10 months since I made the original video, I've had quite a few comments from people, I've made quite a few friends, and also my learning and my understanding has improved as well. So let's have a look at the actual airbrush compressor itself again. Now, in the original video, I mentioned it was called the AS-186. However, I find that depending on the country, region, and even sometimes the shop, it also gets rebranded as the Fengda 186 or the FS-186. These are all the same compressor. They pretty much are made the same. They're almost identical. I've also seen some available that don't come with a reservoir tank. Now, the reason for me having the reservoir tank is knowing that I've always got a consistent flow of air. If I didn't have the tank, there is a chance that any sort of poor airflow would actually cause splutters and could actually ruin the smooth application of paint that is the whole point of having an airbrush in the first place. Going to the comment section in my original video, a few people have asked some questions, so let's have a look and answer some of them. So we have Bosco Jow asking about the airbrush that came with the tank. Now, is it a good airbrush? The free airbrush that you got with it, this is the one from the original video, and to be honest with you, now for me it's completely knackered. Now, it is a cheap airbrush, but is it going to do good for you? It did good for me. I mean, I managed to get a good year and a half out of it. I wouldn't use it for any detail work. It's a workhorse brush. So what I mean by that is basically if you're going to be base coating miniatures, covering large areas, it does the job for that. But yeah, it's completely knackered now. What I use it for now is basically spares. So for example, I basically have a spare needle in there, spare springs, spare parts. Are you going to be making absolute masterpieces with the cheap airbrush that comes with it? Probably not, unless you're extremely talented. But does it do the job? Yes, indeed it does. And like I say, it's absolutely fine for what I do is miniature painting and so on. I've also had some users ask about whether or not the compressor itself gets very hot at all. That's questions from Heiser Sasaki, Brody, and Guy. So first of all, thank you very much for your question. In my opinion, I haven't used it long enough to notice any major heat coming off it. It is equipped with a heatsink. I probably use it for about 45 minutes to an hour max. If you are using it longer than that, then we're probably talking about a massive paint job. So maybe people who are using an airbrush for spray painting cars, bulk t-shirts, motorcycles, probably would be looking at probably a more expensive model. But like I say, for miniature painting, and I'm also going to be experimenting with some canvas painting, got some new canvases behind me, it does the job and it doesn't really heat up that much, not to the point that I've noticed it anyway. But thank you ever so much for your question. On my other video, which was learn from my mistakes, someone who obviously knows what they're doing a lot more than I do, Ray Zimmerman, added a few comments as well. So first of all, thank you very much. And like I said, this is where I learned something too, because there wasn't, well, I couldn't find anyone to teach me. I had to try pretty much figure out the airbrush for myself. But one of the mistakes that I did was to tighten the nozzle using the little spanner wrench which comes with it. And what I did was I over tightened it, snapped the end off. What Ray suggests is to always tighten with your fingers, so you're not doing it too much, and loosen with the wrench only. So that's great news. Another thing that I made a mistake on as well was having liquid in the cup and removing the needle. That's not a good idea because liquid was basically going to be getting into the trigger mechanism. And also I was removing the hose when there was liquid there as well. So again, that's a no-no. The last thing you want is liquid going back into the mechanism. Now purchased 3 more airbrushes since, cheap ones. And like I say, I buy cheap ones because they tend to be workhorses for what I do. And I didn't want to really splash out on an expensive one until I knew what I'm doing. But I just want to say a very big thank you to Ray Zimmerman for giving me those hints and tips. That has been invaluable, and I'm going to try one more time with one of the cheap brushes and make sure that I treat it with the respect and use it properly as well before I do go out and get myself one of the expensive ones. So big thank you to Ray Zimmerman. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for making it this far. If you have liked the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you did so. So in the meantime, everybody stay safe and take care.